Good morning, everybody. I've been asked by several people to comment on posts that were made on Saturday by both the founders of Moroccan Animal Aid, Fanny from France and Lucy from Australia. I have the statement made by Lucy in front of me, and I will refer to that because I do believe that Lucy's statement was quite clear and more coherent. But it needs to be looked at in the context of everything that has happened. Both of them have said that it was with great sadness that they were announcing their resignation. They were stepping down from positions that they held within MAA, and it comes in the hope of a new era for the organisation, one of security, abundance and hope. So just let's look at that opening statement for a moment. MAA doesn't exist in Morocco. I've said time and time again, reinforced by the authorities, or at least by the government and people involved in associations, that the founders were deported and the association was dissolved and the bank account was closed. So the raising of money since then has been done out with the law in Morocco. The problem has been that they continued to rent land down by the river in Ouria, and they had animals on that land, and the landlord would not allow us access. Both myself and another organisation have cases in court, and I understand that there is being a thorough, full investigation into what has been happening in Taghazout and Ouria. So I've had comments from people saying, this is wonderful news. You know, you can now take over. No, I can't. So let's look at it a little more closely. They're looking for someone to take on MAA, perhaps with more resources, more money, and they will work with that person in the transition period. I can't, given my status here in Morocco as a recognised association that complies with all the rules and regulations placed upon me, go and offer to take over another association that is illegal. That just makes sense. Now, Lucy does say her commitment to Moroccan Animal Aid is forever, and she'll offer her time and experience to whoever may wish to take over. I have no doubt that if I found Lucy today and said, okay, Lucy, I'll take over, I don't think she'd be very willing to work with me. I'm one of the people she blames for their downfall. She says she's tried her best to lead MAA with courage and honesty. There is plenty of evidence to the contrary. She has been there for 10 years, and the shelter grew beyond recognition. But if you look back at what happened in Taghazout itself, and the way the animals were housed for many years, which led to people in Taghazout going through the courts and eventually to Rabat, that is what resulted in their deportation. If you look back on the old posts, it was not run with integrity and honesty. It spent MAA, the people who ran MAA, they criticised the government, the local authorities, and there's an element of ethical value in that, of course, because none of us, and please don't get me wrong, support the killing of the dogs in Morocco by the local authorities. And I'm very outspoken about that. Some people may say I'm not outspoken enough, but I live and I work here, and we do a lot of work behind the scenes. It is said that she says that she can't manage the growing demands of administration, funding, leadership from afar. Well, no, you can't do it from afar. But I would like people to look at a moment of how it was done when she was not afar, but when she was here. I've never known an organisation such as that who had so many managers, for example. That they acknowledged themselves that towards the end they weren't hands-on, they weren't in the refuges all the time, and it was very much put out there when they were asking for donations about how much work was involved in administration, staff houses, etc., etc. All I can say is here. Sounds as if I'm gloating. I'm not, but I've always done my own administration, and we have never charged a penny or employed anyone. I'm very lucky. I have a son now who does the accounts for Morocco, which is accepted and is valid. So I think that they tried very hard to build a big organisation without understanding or realising what running a charitable organisation ethically should be. That's my opinion. She said she can't continue to manage the inability to secure enough trained staff, pay wages, suppliers and vets on time, or guarantee food of the animals has led to a decline in standards I can't ignore. Those standards dropped long before the deportations. There were always debts with suppliers. Staff have contacted me over the last few months. They were never paid properly or on time. And obviously in that situation, I don't criticise any of those staff because they really did do their very, very best. But if you're going to bring on professional staff and train them in-house and develop them, first of all, you've got to pay them every week and pay them well and treat them with dignity and respect. The staff tell me that has never happened, and we wouldn't have the outcry we've got now, which I have only come to in the last few months, if that hadn't been happening over many years. I will add at this point of time, I'm very soon going down to Tagazout to meet people. I will be videoing where the refuge used to be, people's views of that, the effect it had on the community, and so forth. There were periods of time in the last 12 months when MAA lacked proper on-site leadership. During that time, the condition of some of our animals became unacceptable. Wow, I would agree with that. But gracious me, when they were asking you all for money day after day after day, what were they saying about their team, how wonderful they were, and showing you photographs of animals being well cared for? It was those people I know and the people who gave me the information that was not disputed that showed the real horror of how the animals were kept. Lucy remains deeply proud of what they accomplished as a grassroots organisation. We started with nothing and became one of the biggest rescues in the country. Oh, Lucy, grow up, grow up. You cannot run a successful refuge starting with absolutely nothing, because what you have in the end is what you've got now. I would say that we are the largest equine refuge in the country. There is no dispute and no doubt about that. We didn't start with absolutely nothing. Lucy would say we were very lucky and very fortunate to have resources. We had resources because we worked hard all our lives and we were able to invest before we started getting to the stage where we obviously needed donations. So a huge amount of personal money went into developing the infrastructure. She has nothing to be proud of. I'm sorry to put it so bluntly. She has made the mistake that so many people make, that they think they can move into a country like Morocco and they have all the answers. Rubbish. No, they don't. I'm sorry, that sort of thing does make me very, very angry. She does say it's a painful truth that conditions were bad at the end, and she holds herself accountable. We have to acknowledge that, and we have to thank her for that. She's ashamed and sorry, and she will carry that with her. I hope she will carry it with her for the rest of her life. And I've often thought myself, if something dreadful happened here, you know, if we were both to die and arrangements had not been made for the future, we always had an arrangement with the vets that there would be emergency care. And we have thought deeply about the future. That's here, and that's what she should have been doing. She's very proud of what they accomplished as a grassroots organisation. It started with nothing, became one of the biggest rescues in the country. How about SARA just down the road in Agadir, which is amazing? How about SFT up in Tangier, which is amazing? There's lots. I mean, some refugees in Casablanca I work quite closely with have been there for, dare I say, donkey years, who really do fabulous work. She was not alone. She says, we fought fiercely and our community grew every day of local people ready to fight for the Beldies. Also, local people were growing in numbers to fight for their eviction, but so be it. A non-violent army of action ready to empty dog trucks and protest the public capture, poisoning and shooting of man's best friend. Okay, a few points there. Our investigations are showing, and there are ongoing investigations taking place, that very often the police would arrive at the dreadful shelter where they were all kept, which was originally their home. Awful, awful conditions, and tried to load the vans, but they never took them away because the so-called protest, it was resolved pretty quickly. I now have evidence that there is a reason why that happened. I can't share that at the moment, but it will become clear in the fullness of time. And the person who really did the work in Agadir was, in fact, the Sunshine Animal Rescue Agadir, run by Michelle Augsburger, who was one of the first, if not the first in the country, to apply a TNVR scheme, and has been taking dogs from the public pound for years and years and years, and has just as many dogs, if not more, and had to care for them under very difficult circumstances, but has maintained her integrity. And equally, you know, there are people in other parts of the country, such as Sally in Tangier, who started with very little and now has a world-renowned shelter. They were not the first. They were not the really successful people. I tell you what they were successful at. They were successful at social media by promoting a myth time and time again and saw the money roll in. That will all become very clear in the fullness of time. So they are now looking for someone to invest or take over. They say their deportation from Morocco has been used to discredit them, and I would be partly blamed for that as well. But their deportation was not just about fighting the authorities, and please look at the wider evidence. I have jumped fences, I've jumped into trucks, I've stood between bullets and the beings I love. That isn't the whole story I get from the local area, but perhaps more about that later as well. So now she is barred from ever returning to Morocco. She acknowledges that. She said she's left her daughter and her animals. Her daughter was a foster daughter. Her daughter was a foster daughter, she's Moroccan, and I know that she was sent to a private school while Lucy was here in Morocco. There are lots of people who will tell you about that in the local area. That's just fact. I'm not saying who paid for it. I'm telling you the facts. What they should be doing, because we have the authority from the we have the permission from the authorities to take all the animals. They should write to the authorities and say, we acknowledge that MAA is no more. We cannot continue to look after the animals who are on the lands that we rent, and they are there now for other people to take. And we have made arrangements that when that happens, they won't be taken by the authorities down to the pound. But we cannot do that until they acknowledge that they no longer exist or legally exist. I hope I've made that clear. I know I've been a little angry at times, and people may criticise me for not having taken the equines when I was down there. But when I arrived at their gate one day, they wouldn't let me in. And I was put on the phone to a third party who was negotiating between Lucy and Fanny and me. And I could have taken some of the horses if I'd signed a contract with them. I said, I can't do that with you directly. It would have to be done through lawyers. And they said, yes, well, we have lawyers. I said they would have to be in Morocco. They said, yes, we have a lawyer in Casablanca. We will send you his details. I'm still waiting for them now. Still waiting for them now. They have lied. It's as clear as that. I'm sure they would accuse me of lying, but I'm prepared to stand by what I've said under thorough, frank and open investigation. The day will come, and when that day comes, the people who continue to send them money, both to France and through PayPal or whatever, I hope they will recognise that if they really care about the dogs in Morocco, they will send it to the people who are caring for the dogs. I'm not asking for myself, I'm asking for the people who look after the dogs. We will probably end up with 40 more equines, and yes, I'm going to have to expand, and I will be looking to expand the non-profit business, because we don't survive unless we run it as a credible business. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.